If you are a software engineer, then your job is basically to press random keyboard buttons and then expect magic results on the first try. What differs us from other office workers is that we are not using Word on a daily basis at least, but a specialized IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. And here the chances are that if you are using IDE, then you are using Visual Studio Code or VS Code for short version, which is the most popular and most loved at the moment IDE or code editor. Basically it is a code editor, however with all the plugins that you can install or extensions, you can turn it into full functioning IDE capable of working with any language, any technology. And in order to make VS Code your own, you'll need to choose some extensions to further increase the productivity and functionality of the IDE. However, there are millions, okay, maybe not millions, but thousands of extensions in the marketplace you can choose from. So in order to choose the very right ones, you'll need to follow some guide. And here there is a guide just for you for web development. I mean, for software engineer, but mostly focus on web development and JavaScript, React, CSS and those kind of technologies. However, not only. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First, we've got Atom 1 Dark theme, which is one of the themes that I have used. I'm not using it currently. I've changed it to GitHub theme, which I will show you later. But anyway, it's a nice one if you want to use it. Very colorful. Atom, basically, it's a great code editor as well. However, since I'm opting for VS Code, I wanted to make it look like Atom at one point. Auto import, a great one when working with JavaScript and TypeScript. And well, what to be said, allows you to auto import stuff when you are calling some elements. For example, I've got footer element, which, well, it's a buggy extension, if I'm to say. For example, snippet, but not this snippet. I've got a snippet open right here and should be able to see it, but yeah, it doesn't. So buggy extension. As I try start typing snippet, you can use this one and it auto imports it from the actual components path. So that's how auto import works. Auto rename tag, very useful and great time saver when working with HTML tags or JSX, which is basically a combination of JavaScript and HTML. So basically you've got those two tags. For example, here, first of all, it highlights both opening and closing tag, and you can change them to whatever you want. Because if you change one tag, the corresponding closing or opening tag will be changed as well. For example, I can now set it to divet, which doesn't exist, and go back and set it to what section. One more extra pro tip: if you highlight some part of text and you want to cover to encapsulate it with some tag, you can use Ctrl+Shift+P, and then you've got this emmet wrap with abbreviation, which I've already added my own key bindings, which is Ctrl+Alt+W. So you can wrap it with whatever, let's say span, and as you can see, it will create both tags before and after. And then using this extension, you can, for example, delete that. And when working with React, you can actually let me make it slightly bigger. You can actually, create this fragment, which is an empty HTML tag, which has its own use in React. Then we've got better comments, which allows you to colorfully mark different types of comments depending on which symbol you use, like
exclamation mark, then you will create a comment which is you've got, for example, okay, it doesn't work always. Why does it work? Right, doesn't work in here. But it works in JavaScript, it doesn't work in JSX for some reason. So here it doesn't work. Which anyway, you wouldn't use comments here, but mostly in the code section. So that's better comments. Just style your comments as you want. Code spell checker, Grammarly inside VS Code, which if you, for example, here I've got container class, right? If I write contain ni, doesn't, it's an unknown word because that word does not exist. So that's the purpose, to search for some meaningful typos that might happen somewhere. CSS peak works with generic HTML CSS tags and classes. This is a React component, functional component used within Next.js framework. So here you cannot really peek into those classes because I'm using CSS modules. So if you want to go into that, you'll see you'll be brought into this CSS module stuff, because basically that class is not named container, but okay, it doesn't matter, that's how CSS modules work. But if you go to generic HTML and you've got some styles, that basically CSS, global CSS thing attached, then you can see that in the class attribute you've got the name of the class, CSS class. And one thing is, when you go press right mouse button, pick definition, the definition will be shown here, or if you press Ctrl and then press, it will be teleported to the definition of the CSS, which is useful, right? Then you've got Docker. What to say about Docker? If you work with Kubernetes containers and stuff, then you will use Docker. That's it. .env highlights .env files. Unfortunately, no extension I found so far that highlights or marks stylus .env.local files, like probably the one, yeah, .env.local, which I will not show you it, but it's not being marked, unfortunately. So only .env files. ES7 plus React, Redux, React Native snippets. If you work with either of these stuff or this particular flavor of JavaScript, you will use them. For example, here, let's if I want to create React functional component with export, then I will just type RFCE and press enter, and you'll get this one with automatically putting free those cursors, multiple cursors. I've created my own, so now I type RRR and it creates next React component, which also adds this importing of the module CSS, but well, that's only my thing. ESLint, useful for checking for bugs and potential errors. File icons, I like this extension, changes all the icons that you have in your Explorer window. The only drawback is that all the folders have the same icon, in contrast to the other extension concerning icons, which I will show later, which is a actual official VS Code icon pack, which I don't really like because the colors are more vivid. Those are more subtle, like yeah, and yeah, that's it. So whichever you want. The other one is it's Visual Studio icons, VS Code icons theme, and the icons are, you can see in a second. Come on, yeah, those are the icons. So the difference is that you have different icons for folders, which is actually can be better. It's beneficial, but whichever you want. Okay, let's go back. We've got GitHub Copilot. What to say about it? It uses AI autocompletion and proposition of some typings. So as you can see in this particular example, it suggests what you should write, and it can suggest whole blocks of functions up to several lines. So it's pretty useful, especially to fill out boilerplate code. So if you're working on a boilerplate driven programming language like Java, but also in JavaScript, especially in like React, Redux, and libraries like that, you have to type a lot of maybe not useless because useful, but boilerplate code. So it's great for that, but it's paid, it's not free. You need to pay I think $10 per month, but I'd say it's pretty worth if you work a lot on programming. GitHub pull requests and issues, useful. I don't use it that much. GitHub theme is the one that I'm using right now. So this actually the gray one here. HTML, CSS support, IntelliJ Sense. So things like basic tools for working with CSS and HTML for increasing IntelliJ Sense capabilities in terms of HTML and CSS. Import cost. Actually, that's pretty interesting that Wix.com created that extension. But anyway, it's useful when you're working with a lot of external libraries. For example, here I'm using Next.js image component, and as you can see, using that cost me 5 kilobytes of additional weight of the package as far as Webpack is concerned. So that's useful. Then you've got indent rainbow, which I use. Normally without indent rainbow, those borders here would be gray. So it will show you which code block, to which word or bracket corresponds to what, either opening or closing bracket, and signifies which is the block scope of the code. However, with the extension indent rainbow, they are colored, so it's even more distinguishable, and you can even set it, the extension in extension settings, from light to classic in order to change between those lines, which I have, or whole bars, which I think is well, too much. For me that's too much, but if you want it, you can set it. You go to settings and change it to classic, and you will have this this version here. All right, then we've got IntelliJ code. Well, without it, it would be pain in the ass to work. Saves a lot of time by providing intelligent autocompletion. Everything that you see, all the autocompletion within those windows. For example, this is IntelliJ Sense. So without that, IntelliJ Sense API usage examples, also useful if you are working with some technologies you've never tried. IntelliJ Sense for CSS class names. It works with basic HTML. So I've got only this one class, so I can, that's the point. It's supports this, but it doesn't support. Unfortunately, it doesn't support CSS modules, as you can see. No, it doesn't know. It doesn't know that you have that class. So CSS modules does not work. Now that I think of it, about the CSS modules, there is an extensions for that, and I have just now installed it. It's actually funny that I've never thought about it. So yeah, coming back to extensions, we need to mention that you've got CSS modules, which allow you to pick into CSS modules classes, so it works with React, for example. So it's, well, people learn all the time, am I right? Coming back to IntelliJ Sense for CSS, that's covered. Then we've got JavaScript code snippets. If you are working with that flavor of JavaScript, then it's worth having. Live server is a very useful one, especially when you're working with vanilla HTML, because I've got this file here, and then I've got icon go live on the bottom tab. I click it to start live server, and actually launches on my other monitor, so I can show you that I've got the test text, which is here in this div with class attached. So I can now do some changes. So test2, and basically it does change in the live. Yeah, that's why it's called live server, I would assume. So yeah, useful. We can kill it and dispose. Right. Now, Markdown 1 and 2 extensions for Markdown. If you work with Markdown, this one is the best one, to be honest. You can open in one tab the Markdown file, and the other you'll have a preview of what you are actually writing if you actually work with Markdown files. Then I've got 2 MATLAB extensions. I work a lot of in MATLAB, so I use those extensions because I find it better to actually work in VS Code and here write the MATLAB code and then just launch the scripts and execute them in the MATLAB environment. Mongo snippets if you are working with MongoDB. If not, then, well, it will not make much sense for you to use it. Path IntelliJ Sense, one of the better ones. Because if you are not using this auto import, which is, as I showed you, a little slightly buggy, then you can use, for example, this technology. So snippet / snippet.jx, which is a great thing to use. Right, so that's Path IntelliJ Sense. Peacock is actually being used right now. It's the extension that allows me to apply this color to the border of my window. And to change it, I would have to go to Control Shift P, Peacock, surprise me with random color. Now it's blue. Nice. It's good if you are opening several windows just to distinguish them. Polar code, if you want to do screenshots of your code. So first of all, you open one window with a code, then Ctrl Shift P, Polar code, open another window, copy code, copy, and paste it in this window. And now just, make it whatever you want. Press this button. Excuse me. Yeah, to save it. So that's that. Polar code. Prettier will make your life so much easier, because right now, for example, I've added this fragment, but it was just for you, okay? So I removed the fragment. What now? I have this whole section indented by one space. Also, I've got this empty space here. And now with Prettier enabled, I will press Shift Alt F, and everything is being formatted on its own using Prettier code formatter. It's beautiful. Prettify JSON, I have it installed. I didn't really use it. I think I used the built-in or Prettier to format JSON, but if you are not using Prettier, you can specify that you want to use JSON for JSON files. React Native tools, if you are using React Native, then I suggest you have it. Sanity, another vendor specific thing. If you are working with Sanity, then it's a must-have. Simple React snippets, useful for improving productivity because of the shortcuts for the boilerplate. However, this thing is pretty much equivalent to using GitHub Copilot for the most time. So if you are not using GitHub Copilot, then use as much snippets as you want, as you can. Tailwind CSS, IntelliJ Sense, so another extension for IntelliJ Sense, but for Tailwind this time. And docs and shades. If you're using Tailwind CSS, it's this pack is a must-have. At least IntelliJ Sense, because those two not so much. Thunder Client is an underdog because it allows you to use the API client, REST API client within Visual Studio. So you have this Thunder Client tab on the left side. You can create new requests inside Visual Studio, send a request to whatever address. You can specify the verb, and then you receive some kind of response. You can pick the headers, you can change the headers at authorization with tokens, bearers, whatever. So you can do all the stuff that you would normally do in a full-fledged suite like Postman. And to Postman, you need to log in, you need to download it. It's pretty heavy, and it's an additional window. So, and most of the stuff there is not being used by mortals. So, Thunder Client. To do tree with big projects comes big responsibility. And that means adding a lot of to-dos, fix missed tags, and so on. And then you have this additional tree, which will show all the to-dos and where are the to-dos located. And so that's pretty useful at times. Turbo console log. Working with JavaScript means you will log stuff to console all the time. So for example, I've got const value, which is equal to some function which I don't know what will be, and I want to check what it'll be. So I can write Ctrl-Alt-L, and it will create this snippet, which will write the console. File is named snippet JSX, line 11. The function or the component is called snippet. The constant, the value variable is called value, and then you'll have the actual value of this variable, which is a better way to log stuff into console rather than just logging the value, which will make your console filled with garbage soon. TypeScript Hero, if you're writing TypeScript, then it's a must-have to make your life easier by this sort organize your imports, etc, etc. VS icons, I already mentioned. You'll see, you already saw how they look like. It's a pretty nice feel. I prefer the previous one, but it's for you to choose from. And last but not the least, XML tools. I'm not sure if I use it, but yeah, for XML files sometimes you'll have them. So yeah, that's that. Those are 44 initially and 1 additional in the meantime. So 45 extensions that I suggest you do use in 2023, especially if you're a web developer, to increase your productivity tenfold. If you have any more, write them in the comments, and thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next time.